Hey there, G3 here, and hope everyone had a good Easter weekend, took a little bit of a break, and I hope you did as well. Today's Dungeon Workshop is about something that I feel that a lot of DMs might do, even experienced DMs, and it's failing, describing failing in just as interesting as a way as you describe succeeding. So if I'm an adventurer, or if I'm a player at your table, right, and then I need a 15 to hit this dude, this orc king or something, I roll it, I hit him, then you might have a whole big diatribe about, like, oh, your sword swings and smashes into his shield and breaks it, and, slices into his forearm, and you roll damage, and, do your special. But if I don't make that 15, a lot of DMs still, even if they're experienced, will say, oh, you miss. And it's just like, well, I'm a hero, and, like, what do you mean I miss? It's like, and it sucks because you got to go all the way around the table. It's like, okay, I got to wait for my turn again. And it's like, do I miss as in I missed entirely the shield? Like I'm just like a dum-dum? Or does it just mean he blocks it with his shield, which I guess is kind of cool, but you have to describe it. So describe your failures in just as interesting a way, and also you have to realize that players want to feel badass. That is why you play D&D. You role play out these heroes, not like people who aren't skilled in anything, because it's that fantasy fulfillment. You get to be this awesome badass adventurer or magician or whatever. So when you fail, or when the characters fail at something, try not to make it as their fault as you can. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, if I'm a fighter who's trained and I'm level 7 and I'm a mighty, mighty warrior and have fought in many battles and, hardened and traumatized by all the people I've slain and all the friends I've lost and whatever, and then when I'm rolling, I just happen to roll like a 2. I mean, don't describe it as, well, you swing at the monster but miss, or you swing into his armor and it clanks the side, whatever. Really play up the fact that it is the circumstances going against you more than the player or the character has personal failings. Another good way to describe this is like climbing a wall, let's say. If you're a dexterous thief and you're trying to scale a cobblestone wall, you don't want to say, you climb up and then fall and just fail. Because let's say you've been doing this for a ton of times and you have a huge plus, you just happen to roll low. A good way in that circumstance is like, you do your typical, climber's preparation, you get your chalk on your hands, whatever, and you start sneaking up, but oh no, the rocks are unstable and you fall back as they break off and they don't provide any sturdy foothold. Something like that makes it far more interesting, and it doesn't make the player feel like their character is not as cool as they want them to be and how they are in their head. Now, that being said, if the player decides to do something that common sense-wise wouldn't work, because they're just being dumb or they want to, just do something kind of wacky, there's nothing wrong with making that, blow up in their face. For instance, if they want to shoot fireball when they're in a closet, that's going to explode them. But if, for instance, a wizard casts fireball at like this big old giant and he misses and their giant still takes half damage or whatever, you don't say, well, your aim was off. You could just say, like, you are, as you're casting your one of your most powerful spells and doing the somatic motions, the giant takes a step forward and the shock to the ground displaces your arm and you fire off the fireball, slicing to the right, and it bursts and catches the giant on the bottom of his foot and his heel and a little bit of his shin, but doesn't hit him true. Stuff like that, where you don't want the players to be like, well, you suddenly forgot all of your training, and their characters seem dumb and stupid, and like 1 minute they're badass heroes, and the next they are not. Now, you could say that's a fault in the D20 system, kind of. I certainly think there is a wide, like, there's always the thing about, well, even the mightiest adventurers roll 1 sometimes. And while that's true, I do think that, like, the amount of times it seems to happen in a game that you just accidentally roll super low, just by no fault of your own because of the dice, it always seems to throw DMs off, and they'll be like, like, there's this mighty band of heroes, but then they find a orc and they just, like, try and hit him with a sword, and it's like, oh, you miss, and it's just like, okay, well, I don't feel as cool now. Give the enemy's character, give the obstacles they're facing character, and describe the circumstances around them failing, outdoing them, rather than the characters having a personal failing. Thanks.